Hi, welcome to Wide Open Road Art's Roving Conversation series. This conversation is with CiPi. CiPi has worked with Wide Open Road Art a number of times in recent years. CiPi's practice evokes ideas of adventure and travel, moving through the landscape in order to understand the environment we live in. These ideas are often explored through textile works that explore methods and themes surrounding the domestic and maker culture. So, thank you, CiPi, for coming and talking to us today. CiPi showed with us at Wide Open, actually has shown with us a bunch of times and worked with us on quite a few projects as well. So, yeah.
That's been a few times now.
Yeah. It's been a few. So, I guess we just would like to start by just asking you a little bit about your practice, like the history of it, how you got going in the whole world of making art stuff.
Oh God, I've always been doing it. As in, I left high school and did creative arts as my degree.
Right. At Wollongong?
At Wollongong, New South Wales.
Yep. Oh, of course.
Yeah. So that was a long time ago, and then did a bit of work after it. Actually, for a few years, just trying to tread the to tread, or encouraged to tread, or this is what you do when you're an artist.
So
what the professional practice of it, of building your CV was the thing that you just had to do. So you would apply for grants, you would apply for group exhibitions, you would try and enter as many prizes as you could, which actually ended up just spending lots of money and time. So I think diluting your actual practice. You sort of spend a lot of time building up this practice, which actually is not your own practice, because you don't spend time actually just being really clear about what you're doing for yourself and your own, what's inside your own mind. Your response is such a constant responding to what other people want.
You're based in the outside world more than
I think so. And that was that may just be my take on what I went through at uni, and then also since then of being part of different organisations where you're constantly getting emails, or not at the time we weren't getting emails, but sort of being presented as this is the world you're in and this is the way we operate in this world. And so you can either have success in that, and I didn't have success in that, but also because you're being primed for this success, you tread this path, and then at some point you'll be picked up by a gallery, or you'll be having major art prizes or whatever it is. And if that doesn't happen and you haven't spent the time actually being an artist for yourself and looking into your own vision, then it's very, what have you got? You've got nothing. So I got very annoyed with it, particularly in the end, about just the amount of money that an artist had to spend to be part of that world. And that really grated on me. And because we were the content for all of these things that were happening. And everyone else seemed to be getting paid, except for the artist who was the content. It's just bizarre. So I think, and that sort of coincided with me deciding to have kids, and so I then spent the next 10 years having children, and also having my own business, which had the creative side. It had a bit of a creative side in it. But then once my oldest turned 10, it sort of my ideas started resurfacing again, and that's when I wanted to start making again. And that's actually when I had my first show with you guys.
Oh, so we got you right at the start.
And I think because it was, I'd go past that place, the windows every day, and it just and because my practice had started to become, in the later years before I got really annoyed, it had started to become more public, in that I wasn't trying to create for galleries, I was trying to create for people that might not expect to be involved in art.
So that's interesting, because that's something that really motivated us in setting up the windows. So it obviously attracted you with similar motivation,
definitely,
to reach people.
I just think sometimes with galleries you're preaching to the converted, so to speak, and it doesn't have and I didn't want to do that. So so your windows created that first step to go, I do want to do this, I just don't want to do it the way that I've been taught or perceived to have been taught how I was supposed to go about it. So, yeah.
I wonder whether we've attracted, because that seems to be a similar, do you think, a theme that runs through the people that we've spoken to who've showed with us? Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? People seeking to bypass the gallery system.
Well, I think it's because of its public nature, you know, and it's, and it's quite, it does these outsiders.
Maybe it's a moment in history too, do you think? Where people are now finding their own ways, like with the internet, there's all this
there is so much. I think we're used to being able to find our own way because there are so many more paths that we can potentially follow now.
Yeah,
we don't have to just follow the set paths.
Yeah,
I mean, and artists in the past wouldn't have just followed those paths anyway. But I just think now I've gotten to that space where I could go, okay, well, I'm just going to do it my way. And
so the previous sort of era of your art life, you didn't. How was that in terms of surviving? Like you're saying, you didn't find that, like you didn't feel an enormous amount of success in applying for things and getting in.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it just wasn't. My head wasn't in the right space, and I wasn't creating the work that I needed to create. And so, towards the end of that, I did start to create some work that I thought worked. And I was doing. By that time, I'd come to Melbourne. I was in New South Wales, in Sydney.
Yeah, right.
And so by that time, I'd come to Melbourne, and I was doing the public art course at RMIT.
Yeah.
I was just doing a 1 year thing there. I think it was a master's, but I was just doing 1 year.
Yeah.
And I thought that work was quite good, and that sort of, I think I'd stopped that then because I had kids and I was annoyed and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But then by the time I got back into it, I think it was probably about 3 years ago now, possibly. I was just taking those ideas and just going, they suddenly blossomed, I think, into, and I think having kids makes you feel more certain about yourself. I think it sort of takes away a lot of the layers of rubbish because you're just in that moment, that raw moment of children and
time's so precious.
And time and I think that and the constraints are there that if you want to create, you actually have to
get off your butt.
You have to do it. And there's none of this.
So parenthood has been.
It's massive change maker for me. Definitely.
I always think like if I could have the motivation and everything that I have now as a parent, but be back then.
We all do.
But I just think that's age, and I think I'm quite excited about being the age that I am, 46 now.
Yeah.
And all of I think that was another issue with back then. It was like, as soon as you hit 30, suddenly you couldn't apply for a vast quantity of grants and things. And that was in the irritation as well. Now I don't care. It's like, well, I'm just going to create work and I'll find my way to do it. But I've got all of that life experience that means I've actually got something to say.
Yeah.
And I've actually got something to think to give. Whereas before, not necessarily.
No.
So.
I know. So how are you finding it now? Like, is it something where, so you practice now, well, what sort of themes are you exploring? What kind of things are you trying to get at with your work?
Well, practically, I'm definitely finding there's a divergent thing happening, that things, they happen one after, it's almost like they happen in balance. So on one hand, I'm doing small, miniature versions of life, I suppose, little moments. I'm creating little moments in whatever form. So the last show was stitched landscape, so I would have a landscape and a person would be there in the landscape and just by themselves. So it's sort of being able to enjoy life on your own. You're in a community and you're in a family, but actually being comfortable to be in those spaces on your own. Because
the title was Wish You Were Here.
Wish You Were Here, but I'm really glad I'm here on my own, or something. Or it's really nice being here on my own, or something to that effect. Which a lot of, I would say that to people, and they'd almost like,
you're not supposed to say that.
It was almost like a naughty thing to say, a taboo thing to say. But I think people got a lot out of it. Whether it was just the miniature nature of it, which I think does draw people in as well.
But also something about miniature. What do you think?
About it. I really don't know what it is.
I heard about.
I haven't looked into that at all.
A book
actually,
that's meant to be quite good on possession and longing and miniatures. Something about it speaking to a yearning. I don't know.
It's probably something
like all the royal portraits and everything.
All
the royal portraits. Like there's a big tradition of miniatures.
In lots of cultures, I think.
Lots of cultures and miniatures. It's just so captivating.
So it's probably another whole world of research to get.
If you're interested in it.
I'm certainly I suppose I haven't felt the need to go there just yet. Yeah. So there's that, and that's all. That work is very quiet for me. It's very. I do that on my own
and
internal. Yeah. And I found preparing for the last show, I found it really hard to get into it. Like, I had the deadline of the show, and I found it really hard to find the time to do it. And I couldn't work out why. And then I realised that I had to actually stop.
Shut the world out.
I had to. I mean, I was still doing it at home at night, kids watching TV, whatever. Yeah. But I had to be in an internal space where I could just stop and be.
Yeah.
And I had to think of that place that I'd been or seen or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had to actually, in my mind, kind of be there in a way, which was quite I'd not really had to put myself in that place before for making work. Yeah. And so that was...
So how did you do that logistically?
Oh, nothing changed except my brain.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like literally nothing physically changed. It was just the acceptance of, this is not about completing work. It's actually about being in a place and just stitching. And
do you think that's what's hard about art? Like, one of the great difficulties or tensions is that need to shut the outside world out, or to need to be able to go into this imaginative or, you know,
I suppose it absolutely
space.
Depends on the person and what but the person and what they need and what there's so many different types of people that are artists, and everybody functions in society or their family in a different way, and you've just got to find your own way.
You got to find
which means
that way.
you have to allow yourself to take that day off when you need to take that day off, and you have to stop all those restrictions that you place on yourself.
Yeah,
you have to be able to go, no, I need to do this now. And which is why I kind of set up my own business to do work in my own time, because I know I need that.
So you can set your schedule, basically. Is that what you mean with your work?
Yeah, I can set the schedule over a week, but also most importantly is that a lot of the work that I do will use a lot of the same equipment or the same materials, as in, like, a lot of the artwork I do will use the same equipment, materials, space that my paid work does. So if in a day I've got something on, but I'm like, I have to do that thing right now. Like, it's in my head, and so I can take an hour off and just mock something up really quickly. It doesn't have to be brilliant, but it just gets that brain into something physical right now, and then that helps you. You can even just leave that for a few weeks, and because you've got that in some form, you can then go on with it later in a more, appropriate time.
Something that I'm interested in with two things about sort of like about the process and the content, but I guess it's kind of work, but I guess it's kind of tapping into the idea of art as a political thing. Do you feel that art should be exercising any kind of a politics?
I've always, in my mind, avoided that, just because because I don't want to be boxed up.
Yeah.
And I don't want a bunch of people who don't like that politics to go, well, I don't care about that artist, or I'm not going to listen to that artist because they're this.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work for me. So whilst I might refer to, in a way, or I might be thinking about, refugees, the issues, it'll be not because I want to, I don't know what it is.
No, I understand that entirely, that thing of not wanting to be overt also about...
It's sort of like, as a personality, I don't want to have a fight with anyone, but I also feel very strongly about those issues. So it's sort of finding a way to express that so that people can come out, so that it's not confrontational. It's almost like it takes a confrontational barrier away so that people can just experience that thought or that moment.
So do you think that, therefore, art could actually... be political without trying to be, in that it is, if you sort of like gently have something, a politic in your work, but it's not blatant. Do you think?
And I think that's actually even more powerful in that, because people can engage with it in a different way, that they would normally deal with a political matter. But in a more gentle way, which is more personal, so they might be able to connect with that story of that individual or that situation on a more personal level without having to engage that intellectual fight. Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a different way of practicing your politics, isn't it?
Yeah. It's almost a quiet way, and I do have discussions with my friends about, whether you go and you protest something that happens, and I'm not going to do that, but I might, create a work and put it in a context, like an exhibition or whatever, that
it's still
public, and will hopefully have an impact in a different way. Because I think, especially those big complex issues, you need to come at them from different ways, because not everyone's going to respond in the same way.
And you're allowing for nuance too, aren't you? Like there can be a more nuanced response to it rather than just a no or a rejection. It could be
or even a confirmation of that's what I think. It might be a bit deeper, like it might put some layers in there for you. So
it's good. Sounds. I haven't heard anyone talk about it like that. I don't think I haven't had the conversations like that. But so
that's the quiet sort of what I'm calling the quiet work that I do. But then I've sort of seemed to have this constant other side, which would also connect in what we were just talking about, of this sort of almost like a public live art kind of thing, where I do my character, it's not a character, but my superhero persona. And by connecting with people in that way, and then I'm directly connecting with individuals as in a little meeting format or an interview format, and then having discussion with them about that, about whatever, like, which might be more personal politics.
So what's behind the pink shadow? What's sort of, how did that come about, and what's behind that?
I don't know. It's funny. I'm trying to write a report, like a report, which I've never done before. I'm very allergic to administrative things, but I have a desire for this particular instance to write a report on my craft cubed pink shadow, the pink shadow token game experience, because I had interviews in that with about 40 people.
Wow, that's great.
Which was really great, and even that was even with me scaling it back, because I thought I would be able to. I had a little kit. The game kit. I called it a game because sometimes I just think life is just this game that we're all agreeing to play in certain ways, and different people have different rules, and so I sort of wanted to have a game format which involved tokens, and so I thought I'd just be able to have my kit and walk around and grab someone off the street and that I knew, or whatever, or be in certain situations where we could just play this game, which only took 2.5 minutes. And I set a very tight time frame for that, so it would be nice and concise. And but I found it very draining physically, mentally and physically, and emotionally, to do that game, even though they were such little short snippets, but I think they were quite intense.
What was the game? What did you do?
So, you meet with someone, I'd have a timer, it was 2.5 minutes timer, I start the timer, welcome them to the game, and they would, I'd have a pack of, a little bag of tokens that I'd made, so they were all different. The craft cube aspect was particularly about the materiality of all of those different tokens that I'd make. So I had some plastic ones, some leather, textile, whatever. And so someone would choose a token that they liked, and some mysterious process, they would be able to gain a superpower by the acquisition of that token. So then I would just say, what superpower would you like today? And I actually often said, what superpower would you like today? So it would be very much based on how their day is going. And some people would come to the little meeting with an idea of what they wanted, and often they would change that. So I'd have a set of cards that would have superpowers written on them, and they'd sort of almost became a solitaire type thing, where they would sort out cards and they'd sort of grab a few that they liked, and then they would discard other ones, and then sort of slowly go down to figure out, actually this is the one that I wanted. And it was really nice, and there was lots of really great ones, and then sort of halfway through the process, because it was through the month of August, so the game changed a little bit through that time, and one of the big changes was being able to cross 2 superpowers. So traditionally when people have done this superpower thing, you just have one superpower, and that's all you're allowed to have, and that's where your imagination you have to choose one, and I never like all my choices like that. It's kind of annoying. So I got people, you cross them, and so someone, really beautiful one was someone chose super calm with healing. And it was just a really lovely cross of powers, and there was lots of them, like extra time.
Extra time's great.
There was telepathy, and it wasn't on the cards, but lots of, like, I had only maybe, I can't remember how many cards, maybe 12, and lots of people chose invisibility. and actually a lot of those were kids.
Which is that makes sense.
Yeah, but not everybody. Yeah, actually, most of the invisibility were kids, and they would often choose invisibility and teleportation, which I just kind of read as that's their place in the world at the moment. Restricted, and so it enables them to have freedom.
So were you analysing? Is that part of it? Were you trying to figure out where they're
Not really, and I didn't really want to do that. It was 2.5 minutes, so it didn't allow for that. But and I'm certainly no way trained or there was a bit of a point of panic at some point where I went, oh my! I realised that it was becoming almost a type of counselling, which it wasn't, but it almost had a miniature little tiny bit of feel of that, and I suddenly panicked about I have no right to be here. This is what it's becoming, and I have no training, no interest. But that's not the intent. It wasn't the intent, but it was what it was becoming. And I think it was about people just for a moment in time being given the choice of what is it that you want and what could you have if you had it right now. And the choices were really beautiful.
I think that's really lovely. Will you make another work, do you think, based on
well, I'll do during the festival, coming out festival, I've invented a residency.
Great.
And it's at an ice cream shop.
Oh wow.
So I'll have so it'll be I'm calling it the ice cream residency. And so I'll just have a corner table, and so I'll do some superpower. I was calling it a superpower exchange. So I'll do some superpower exchanges and make some little things, and
So the report that you're talking about writing, is that because you feel like this needs to be recorded?
I do actually. Partly it was I was trying to I was not making judgments as I was going, but I was. So actually that was it. At the end of they'd chosen the superpower, and then I recorded it in a book. Called the Encyclopedia of Superpowers.
Okay, so it is all recorded.
So I was the only thing I was recording was the actual superpower, and I'd say we don't want to have these superpowers just running around everywhere. We've got to have a bit of a record of what's going on.
You need to know who's got the
telepathy. Teleportation. Exactly. So that was good. But in this report itself, that I've just taken on myself to write, I've just matched up whether they were a woman, a man, or a child.
Basic.
Yeah, really, really basic, super basic information. I think that's it. And maybe just where we were doing it, maybe the location, and any notes because we have a conversation about it. And so it was totally not attached. Yeah, the report's not attached to individuals or.
Does the Pink Shadow have superpowers?
Well, obviously.
Well, what are they?
I know. Well, this is the thing. I have been thinking about this because I'm sort of allowing. The part of the speech or the script that I was using was I'm the Pink Shadow and I'm your supernatural aid to help you acquire a superpower. And I've been reading a book. It's quite an old book called A Hero with 1,000 Faces, and by Joseph Campbell, I think. And he in the 40s. Was doing a lot of research on the hero and how a story in general, something like there's 7 types of stories in the world, and all these different cultures, all these different cultures, and they would have to travel a similar journey, path. So I've just been reading that, and I found that quite interesting. So in one of those steps in that story is the supernatural aid is there, so it'll be a wizard or something will happen, like the touch of God or whatever, that allows an individual to allow them to access something that they wouldn't normally be able to access. So I was putting myself in that position that I am the Pink Shadow is the supernatural aid to allow this person right now to access something they wouldn't reasonably be able to access.
Obi-Wan Kenobi is basically
well, Star Wars apparently was a big George Lucas sort of
the Campbell is a hero. The climaxes are all at the same point.
The
selected hero is usually unwilling.
And and they have to choose. And then in the end they have to go back to their society. They have to leave, and then they come back. And they're challenged, and then they come back and have to reintegrate into society.
It's Homer's Odyssey as well. Like it's from the beginning.
So I can't remember.
Sorry.
But
the pink shadow, she's the age.
Oh yeah, and whether the pink shadow has superpowers. I was thinking about it a lot, especially as I was enabling all these people to, because I didn't come into it thinking that I had a specific superpower, but then sort of trying to figure out what would it be if I was in a similar position. And at one point I decided I would want immortality. But with significant hibernation periods.
Sleep.
Like significant sleep periods, like maybe of 100 years. And then you sort of wake up and just be able to go on with the life that you want to live.
You do that. You don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's already happening. I don't know. But then I was chatting to a friend and I decided there was a better one. I don't know the name of it, but it's which I should probably find out. Where it's sort of like you have the capacity to change the you've got it's like a physics power where you can change the nature of objects or things. So that could mean that you could heal things, you could change shape, you could teleport, you could do pretty much anything because you're controlling physics within yourself. So yeah,
it's a good one.
I do need to find the name of that one. That's almost like the ultimate superpower. If you can change anything, like.
That's pretty much the
one.
Yeah. That's like the queen of chess games. She can do all the moves. That's what the one you want. Yeah.
So with this project for Crackcube, it was in Castlemaine. What was it? What's happening in Castlemaine?
Yep.
And you work mostly in Castlemaine, living in
Castlemaine.
So how do you feel about something we're exploring? Is how do you feel about the idea of an art centre? Do you feel separate to that? Or?
I've really been thinking about this just in the last hour.
Great.
Timing. Yeah. Partly because I'm thinking about what I do from now and whether I go and follow the academic path or just that
academic.
Just because it's when you involve, I feel sometimes that you can, as a person researching or creating work, you can often have a bigger reach when you're part of a bigger organisation. So maybe there's just lots of different ways I'm thinking about it, but that's one of them. But also, it's kind of the path that's available to us Australian artists right now.
Exactly what we're all
It's a
time.
It's like, well, that's the real accessible path that's available to us. So maybe I do that. I don't know.
And so, how does that connect to the art centre idea? Just that
I suppose, particularly about where you do that, whether you attach yourself to a city.
Or a
Latrobe or an regional. And I went to art school not in the centre, like it was in Wollongong. It wasn't, in Sydney.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the kind of thing that I do. Maybe it's not important to do. I think it's about your work and it's about. I don't feel the need for particular social standings, so just questioning all that, I suppose, is And I haven't come to any conclusions, but just thinking about that, about. I think it's maybe what you want and and the people that you're trying to connect with, and if those people only care about the centre, then being a regional artist or going to a regional university or they're less likely to take interest in you, I think.
And that's something that you have to figure out.
I have to figure out whether I care about that, and I think that I don't.
Yeah.
So, because I've already not cared about that, and why am I going to suddenly care about it?
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
How does that fit in with the money side of things? For you, how does your practice relate to your work? Is it like they're on equal standing and both are equally important, or is the work to support your art?
So I've just also recently, because I've just recently moved my workshop to home for financial reasons, but for family reasons, for lots of different reasons, it's going really well, and so it's given me the opportunity, because I had to separate up my creative practice and my work quite clearly before, when I was up at the workshop away from home. I think for practical reasons I had to do that, and now that I've got it in the same place, I'm definitely feeling it coming together of those two sides, and that I'm able to just operate as an individual rather than as Miss Business Person, Miss Creative Artist,
And the fragmentation.
That's sort of all coming together and feeling better about my world. Far less fragmented. So since doing that, I've been able to think more clearly about my practice and how it relates to my work. And whilst I think if you're not financially secure in some form, in that you don't have, in that if I have a mortgage, I have a family to feed, you know, I have to have money coming in regularly without constantly having to fight or think about where that will be. Yeah. So I have to have a functional, either a job that is consistent, or I have to have an income that's consistent in some way. So having my own business is the way that I've chosen to do that. So I've now decided that my business supports my creative practice. Yeah. And so my creative practice comes first, but if I don't have a functional business, I can't have the creative practice, because there are stresses there that totally kill off any creativity. Yes. As soon as you're financially stressed and you're having to worry about where your next dollar's coming from, there's no creativity. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you move to Castlemaine because of that reason? I can't remember how long you've been here.
I've been here nearly 10 years now. 10 years. Me and Chris and the boys.
And were you coming up from Melbourne?
Came from Melbourne.
And was that the drive?
It was about... it was financial, yes, definitely. Yeah. Oh, in that we wouldn't have been able to... It was about purchasing, I suppose, a property.
So being able to buy a house.
To buy a house.
Which you wouldn't have been able to do in Melbourne?
That's what we would not... We would not have been able to live in a place that we wanted to live.
Okay, and do what you wanted to do.
And to do what we wanted to do.
That being the critical factor.
The thing with Chris and I is we will always do what we want to do. It's just to our own financial detriment. We're both quite driven like that. We have our own thoughts and practices that really do take priority in a lot of ways. Right. So it was never an option to just have a job and to have a big mortgage. That's just not. That was never an option for us. So, so moving to Castlemaine, that was definitely the priority. But also, I mean, I grew up in a town similar size to Castlemaine, and I, you know, to be able to bring up a family and send them to school around the corner and be in that reasonably, not too small, but reasonably small community where they recognise everybody that they, you know, go to school with, or go down the street, go and buy fish and chips. You know, I found that a sort of a comforting thing, I suppose, when I was growing up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And how have you found this as a place to be an artist?
Well, it's kind of easy.
Yeah, good.
I hope it stays that way.
What makes it easy?
Lots of people around to connect with, as in to chat, and other artists, but also creatively minded people. I think they don't have to be artists to be creatively minded, and so it means you can just bump into someone down the street and have an amazing conversation in 5 minutes about some amazing thing. Like I think there's a nice there's a concentration here that works. Yeah,
seems quite rare to me. I don't know, but
I don't know.
It seems like a special moment in time.
Yeah.
People moving up here.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do we have anything to say? Surviving as an artist,
Yeah, we'll talk about how do you do it. One of the things that I've asked people is if I think it's got harder or easier to be an artist. But
I don't know, because I don't know, I suppose. Because I feel like I operate, I could be completely deluded, but I feel like I operate in my own way that is, you know, I'll just be an artist whether there's money around, whether there's not, or, you know, and lots of people would be like that too, but so I don't really know if it's harder or easier. I suppose the only thing is, you know, the path that we do have often is if you're an artist or you're creative, you go and you do your undergraduate degree, and so now all of that costs a lot more. And I think to have that much bigger debt burden, which maybe as an artist you'll never pay off, I don't know, but maybe.
Yeah. They might be changing the laws on that anyway.
So but to have that over your head, I think to know that debt is there.
Or even to buy a house in Castlemaine now, like it's different to 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah, so I suppose, but artists have always been like that. They go into a place and make an interest here, and everyone else comes in and buys it up and kicks them out because it's too expensive. So that just seems to be, I don't know, it's not fair, but it seems to be some kind of cycle. So but I suppose living expenses, if they're higher, then I suppose that would make your life much more difficult to create work in terms of actually having a space. But also having the headspace to, all the time, to be able to do it.
Well, that's what you were describing before about you need to remove the pressures, the survival pressures, in order to make the work that you want to make.
Absolutely. And that's pretty standard in anything, really, unless you're such of a state of mind where you can just create in any situation. But I don't think that's not
sustainable.
No, it's not a good, healthy place to be.
No,
because especially with family around you, and if you're
and having children,
children
is the deal breaker, isn't it?
It is. It totally is.
Sure.
Everything changes.
There's certain themes in our interviews. It's having children. It's I don't know. Money. Yeah.
Well, thank you for talking to us. That's been great.
It's been really good.
Thank you.
All right.